So, we had a lot of very beautiful presentations today. My presentation is not going to be that beautiful, partly because, well, I didn't have enough time or because I'm lazy, I don't know. But I hope that it's going to be very informative because today I'm going to be talking about the upcoming Humanode governance and how it's different. We call it Vortex, and as you can judge by the name here, it's not the first iteration. Actually, it sounds like a first iteration, but it's actually not the first iteration. And today I'm going to delve into how Vortex is structured, how do we see one human, one vote governance happening on blockchain, which might have been imitated before, but in our case, it's going to be directly connected with the notion that one human can only deploy one node on our network. So without further ado, let me start. And actually, I'm going to be asking a lot of questions to you guys today. So what is Vortex? Basically, Vortex is the governing system that is going to be run by our Humanode network. Those people who are engaged in Humanode network right now as validators are going to be going to become the main governing body, right? So right now, this decision making is centralized, right? Because, well, we're a new startup. We're only 4 years old, and our mainnet has been running for 2 years only. That's like not a lot, based on the consensus mechanism that we've introduced. We are still kind of, well, we're hopeful that everything works fine, but who knows? Like, the code base is huge. The approach that we're taking to security is very innovative because, as you might know, there's no mining equipment or staking involved in Humanode at all. So there were a lot of challenges on how to build up the governance system in Humanode that would be democratic, that would be egalitarian, and not stupid at the same time. The last thing is the most hard. So let me start with the core principles, and by understanding these core principles, you will understand how the whole system is built. So the main principle, and I would say the central principle, is cognitocracy. And I think, if you have read the paper that was released in May, you probably might know what it is. If you don't know what it is, it's a form of governance that we refer to as the governance of merit and creativity. So, of course, you have heard about meritocracy, probably, where those people who are experts or have experience in some kind of work or field get the reins to govern on something. Cognitocracy is a governance that only orients itself to your intellectual creativity and merit. But I will delve into it a little bit later. The other 3 core principles are local determinism, and I think it's a very important one because you see, well, it's my personal belief, of course, that ideology does not equal good solutions. Why? It's pretty simple. Let me ask you a question. How many politicians do you know that are experts in something other than politics? Do you know any? Who? TikToks, right? Pretzels. Good. Nice. Any other examples of politicians being experts? Okay. He does judo. Okay, but if you think about it, right? So you can probably stand anywhere on the ideological spectrum. You can be a leftist, you can be a rightist, you can be a centrist, but if we're talking about real life, right? We're talking real life problems. We are expecting some results from our problem solving, right? So our parliaments, our leaders are trying to make law on various fields of our lives, you know, financial, technological fields, I don't know, medicine. And of course, they're handed documents by the experts, you know, to make a decision. But who knows what processes were involved in those documents, right? How those documents were forged, how did those documents end up in front of those politicians? You don't know. So we're living in a world, basically, where our politicians are elected by popular vote, and they're not experts in anything they have to make decisions on, unless it involves politics, right, themselves. So local determinism is, well, it's a term, basically, that I refer to as if it works, if it solves the problems that we have, and it brings results right now, I don't care where it is. If it's communist, if it's oligarch, I don't care. If it solves the problems and brings results that we need right now, it's good. The fourth core principle is the principle of constant deterrence. Now, of course, you've probably all heard about checks and balances, right? Where do checks and balances work? Any systems they work in? Do they work? Where? In banks? Checks, you mean like checks that you write out? So name me a system that was not disbalanced, that, you know, tried to implement checks and balances. No, there's always a power grab. There is always a seizure. There is always something happening inside. And the biggest reason why is that the system cannot protect you. It cannot prevent centralization of power. The only thing that really can protect you is you. So a constant deterrence is your responsibility as people who are watching over democracy and liberalization of you know, our everyday lives. It's up to you to find those dangerous centralization points and engage them to change the system. So, for example, most of the democracies of the liberal world were formed when? Their basics were formed when? Their divisions to branches, when they were formed. Who can tell me? In the 20th centuries, some of them in the 19th centuries, right? Yes. Has a lot of things changed in our world since then? So it's not about the system. It's about the way system can maintain its speed of evolution compared to how power centralizes in it. And constant deterrence is up to the people to find those dangerous centralization points, address them, and change systematically, you know, like a very fast way. And the last, but not the least, is the power detachment resilience. So it's a thing actually that more corresponds with the, well, of course, real life parliaments and governmental bodies, but it's a thing that exists in every single blockchain out there. What does it mean? So imagine you had a blockchain that would declare, guys, we have one human, one vote governing body, right? But we are running on proof of stake. Do we see something strange in this? Or like, for example, we have 20 validators that have concentrated all the stake, the most of it, in their hands, and they're really holding the power in their hands. But to feel more democratic, to feel more egalitarian, of course, they would create a one human, one vote body. The question is, will this governing body, consisting of one human with one vote, will have real power or not? Will it? It will not. Why? Because if something goes wrong in the system that doesn't satisfy the requirements and the targets set by the 20 most powerful validators, they can always overrun it. They can always modify the state. They can do whatever they want because there is a power detachment. You can have 1,000 humans in your governing body, egalitarian, having the same vote, but when your infrastructure is power is divided differently than your governing body, it has no sense at all because the real power remains somewhere else. And the core principle of Humanode is to evade this power detachment resilience. Why? Because one human, one node, and one vote. And there's no way to concentrate this power unless you're trying to sock puppet, of course, and unless you're trying to buy someone out. But there is no power detachment in terms of having 20 concentrated validators and running at an egalitarian facade on top. Now that you know the core principles, let's deep dive a little bit into what is Vortex and how it's going to be run. So you know that not only blockchain projects, but most of the governments out there struggle with plutocracies when basically wealth dictates policy, and very influential companies and people are able to funnel their funds into the policies that satisfies them, right? It's a big problem. The second biggest problem is, of course, populism. Populism is like what we call a bad doctor's solution. It's like, oh, you don't want to have this serious changes or take this bad medicine. Okay, take this candy, you know, although you have diabetes or something like this. You know, it's like spoiling the children once and once again to gain the popular vote. And the popular vote is the real problem of populism. So that there is one day or several days when there is an election for the person or a party that will just tell you that all your fantasies and everything that you want to have in this life is going to be solved and done by a person who does nothing about what's really going on, in his institutions or on the ground, in 95% of the cases. The third thing, of course, is lack of engagement. We call it the voters' apathy. It's like when you want to have a very engaged governing body consisting of a lot of people expressing their opinions, engaging in governance all the time, but they don't really believe in the strength of their own voice, or they're apolitical, and because of the voters' apathy, there's less and less and less and less people participating in governance, and that's why it becomes centralized. And yeah, of course, all of these things from plutocracy, populism, and voter apathy, and many other things, I'm not just gonna talk about all of them here, bring centralization risks. And let's delve into how Humanode's Vortex tries to address it. So we have different kinds of roles in Humanode. We have humanodes that are just running our nodes, right? And in the future, of course, the governor role will be introduced. So governors are basically any human nodes that any day decide that we want to be engaged in the governance and take part in it. You don't need to stake any money. You don't need to have any mining equipment, right? You just verify that you're a real human being, express your desire to, I want to make decisions in the financial network that we're running, and boom, you're a governor. And there are 4 things that governors will be orienting themselves to, by which will understand that the engagement of the governor himself, and the position he's taking in this structure. And I'll get to the positioning a little bit later. So we'll be looking at, of course, the proof of time. It's for how long you've been running the node, how long you are participating in the governance, 1 month or 2 years. And what biometric technology allows us to do is to understand that okay, we don't know really who you are, but we know that you're the same person coming and voting from the same account for a long time. And here we go to the proof of devotion. It's like how engaged you were in the governance. How many proposals did you make? How many debates did you engage in? As we'll have this on-chain data gathered about like public addresses of the Humanode network engaged in the governance process, we'll be able to tell, how much contribution in terms of governmental devotion you have personally given to Humanode. And when I'm saying you personally, I'm talking about every single one of you running a validator will be able to become a part of this without any wealth barriers or anything. The third thing is, of course, that I already mentioned, is the proof of human existence. Is the same thing as Sybil resistance. In this case, we will be if we find anybody trying to maintain Sybil networks, which will be, of course, in our case, impossible. We'll, from many sides, do whatever we can to bash them out. And the fourth thing is, and I think personally, it's one of the most important things, is that there will be a form of barrier, an intellectual one, for obtaining voting rights in the field of expertise that the governor is good in. And let me explain in more detail. So the structure will be like this. Here you can see the Humanode chain, and we will have 3 major parts and an app. So there will be a proposal pool that will be done to filter out proposals coming from inside the DAO and outside the DAO. There is going to be a vortex. It's a vortex inside of vortex, so bear with me. Vortex where the votings on the proposals is going to be conducted by the people who are experts in one field or another. And there's going to be a formation, we call it a place, where we can assemble teams and budgets based on the proposals that were accepted in Vortex. And of course, we're going to build a very comfortable DAO applications where our human nodes will be able to engage as governors. And it's going to be all these parts, like proposal pool, Vortex, and formation, are going to be part of the app. There are of course going to be governing tiers of people, but you got to understand, our main notion is that one human has only one vote all the time. Your money doesn't care, the amount of time you spend at the DAO doesn't matter. You always have one vote, you personally, and it does not grow in strength at all. What changes is what you can propose. For example, if you come and you're a newcomer, you can propose only product-related changes, marketing, branding, or something else. But as you progress through the tiers that you can see right here, the proposition rights will be opening to you. And I don't know if you can see properly, but there are certain requirements that you have to meet. Most of them, of course, are running a node is a good one. Then making proposals and being accepted, running a node for several years, being an active governor for various types of years for different tiers. And as you saw on the slide before, basically, when you reach the last tier, the citizen tier, you can make proposals on anything. Changing the governmental structure, changing the core principles of the DAO itself. And even if you're a node runner and a governor for 4 years, and you have exceeding reputation in various fields of expertise that you're doing decision making in, your voting power is always equal to 1, not more. As you can now compare it to other blockchains out there, proof of work and proof of stake blockchains, who are for a long time running the experiment of DAO and governance. And What is their main problem? Who can tell me? What is their main problem? Why? Why the voting is not equal? Because it's connected to the token. So the Humanode's governance will be disconnected from the token. The token doesn't matter. Token is a separate market thing. It has its own life. The governance is egalitarian-based and properly democratic, and your strength does not change. That's the main thing. Now, let me delve into cognitocracy, because I think it's very important to understand what cognitocracy is. Once again, it's a governance by proven creativity and expertise. And the main reasoning for this is that we wanted to ensure that there are no non-experts involved in taking serious decisions and relevant matters. When we're talking about lives of hundreds and thousands of people, when we're talking about economy and financial network that will probably influence millions of people one day. We want decisions to be taken by experts who know stuff about what they're thinking, about what they're doing, and not some populist leaders that were elected at school election presidents. Oh, a popular guy, a popular girl. No. This will be done by proper experts in separate chambers. And we introduced specialization chambers. So usually governance in crypto has one or two chambers. They would do one chamber where wealth is decided by token. The voting power is decided by wealth. They would do one egalitarian chamber when there's one human, one vote. But you could pretty much go inside the chamber just putting money and boom, you're a governor. In our case, we want to ensure that there are separate chambers on separate things, like development separately. And in development, there are many other chambers separately inside. Marketing separately, finance separately, law separately. And we want to make sure that only people that have proven their expertise in this field have the power to make a vote on the decisions that will affect the system in this expertise. But of course, there's the general chamber. And the general chamber is the place that encompasses all of the governors inside the system, all the experts from all the fields in one chamber. And of course, based on our hypothesis, and you can read it, by the way, the paper is out. Any decision in the general chamber, so that this thing is still egalitarian and democratic, will and can overrule any decision of the specialization chamber. So proposal pools are a part of every single chamber, because you can be spammed with proposal, and there have been attacks like this on several DAOs out there. And we want to make the voting process more orderly. We want it to be more engaging topics that really interest the community. So what we do, we introduce the quorum of attention, we call it. So the proposal must first achieve attention from some percentage of governors. Here we take 22% before going to the vote. And then it will have to achieve another quorum of voting to actually get accepted or not accepted. The voting mechanisms in the specialization chambers and in general chambers are going to require 33% of acting governors to reach the quorum, and it will require a quality majority of 66% plus one person for any proposal to be approved, not 51%. And as I mentioned before, the third part is formation. It's a place where not just governors, right, but any human node out there can come and declare his specialization, propose himself for a role in some proposal project that was accepted by the Vortex mechanism. And it's a place where people will be able to, propose various roles. It was a place to basically assemble teams to realize the proposals that were accepted in Vortex. And let's talk about several advantages, as mentioned before. So, specialized governance, we are talking about the governance of experts. Now, blockchain and our public registered blockchain gives us, transparency, and we can see like all engagements. We can see wallets of our governance. We can see which governors vote for what things together. So we can like not just somebody votes somebody in the parliament and we'll always see like two results. No, we're going to be able to see everything that's happening on chain, and it's going to give us a more transparent picture about what's happening in the governance of Humanode. And adaptive structure, because there's a lot of activity, you have to be an active governor to be counted in the quorum, will give us an adaptive structure to address the constant determined principle that we were talking about in the beginning. And of course, I was not able to fully address the whole Vortex here today because it's a giant system, and in 20 minutes, it's impossible. There's a big paper on it. And if you feel interested in how it really works in precision, you can go to our website and read about it. But we want to bring a system that where intellectual merit and creativity drives the decision making. And as one of the favorite words in crypto a few years ago, it brings sharding to decision making. It's like you don't have one chamber full of populist voters voting on stuff they don't know about. It brings you separate chambers based on specializations with experts that make fast but very weighted decisions on the things that they know. And we want to see how this structure of governance will flourish in an egalitarian system such as Humanode. I already talked a lot about how Vortex is different, but here I want to just refurnish it once more. So, acknowtocracy-based governments, expert-driven. We are gathering proof of time and proof of devotion, not basing anything on wealth. The vote is always equal to 1. Specialization chambers will allow to shard the governance. Egalitarian voting power never changes. And proposal filtering has a separate attention quorum. And a voting mechanism is a separate quorum requiring active participation. We're going to have formation as a built-in base to assemble your team and receive granting from the Humanode Foundation as well. So yeah, maybe not just proposals for changing the structure of Humanode itself and changing the principles of Humanode, but also a venue to propose projects, to propose various solutions that would require budgeting and team to realize them. And Sybil resistance, of course, at its core, which is inherent from the biometrics. And again, adaptive structure and transparency for constant deterrence. Constant deterrence will bring us real egalitarian democracy one day, and hopefully the experiment actually that we're carrying here out on Humanode in 20 or 30-year times will become useful data for political scientists to create proper programs for governments that will exist in the future. And hopefully our experience today will help them and fuel the fire of the change that will happen in the future, of course, because how many liquid democracies are there on the planet? Shannon talked about liquid democracies in his presentations. How many liquid democracies do we have? Liquid democracies are when you don't have 1 or 2 days of voting where you can take your vote, change a candidate, change the party whenever you want. How many do you think there are on planet Earth in 21st century in 2024? 0, correct. Yes. So, and one of the fewer steps and one of the fewer experiments, it all begins is Humanode's Vortex. So remember this, and this is what we're going to do. Thank you very much.